Hi everyone. For my flipped classroom, I decided to work on a second grade science standard. So my standard is the structure and properties of matter. So in my lesson today, we're going to construct an argument with evidence that some changes caused by heating or cooling can be reversed and some cannot. So first of all, I would like to go ahead and introduce the reversible items. So think about reversible as something that you can turn around or turn the other way. For example, butter. If it's in a very cool refrigerated area, it's a solid, but if you put it in a very hot or under heat, it becomes melted butter. Same as water. If you put it in the freezer, it's under very cold temperature, so it becomes ice cubes, but just under room temperature or under a very basic temperature, it would just be considered water. Other items to consider are candles. For example, candles, once you start the flame on them, they start melting little by little, just like butter. It turns into a liquid, and under room temperature, it would turn back into a solid, perhaps not in the same form that it used to be, but once it's dry, then it becomes a wax, a harder material rather than the liquid. As for chocolate, very similar. If you leave a chocolate bar outside on a very hot day, chances are that you're going to come back to a melted chocolate bar. And if it's under room temperature, or if it's in the refrigerator, it will retain the solid form rather than it being melted or liquidy. And now moving on to irreversible items. So reversible, we talked about items being able to turn around. Irreversible is items that we cannot turn around. So for example, a food item that we couldn't turn back around is an egg. When you crack an egg, it's very liquidy. Once you put it under heat and you cook it, it becomes a solid. And after that, we cannot turn it back into a yolky, runny egg. Same for popcorn. When you first look at popcorn, they're kernels. Once you put it under heat or very hot circumstances, it becomes popcorn. If you try to bring back the popcorn into a kernel, unfortunately you couldn't. And other items to consider in regards to items that are not reversible are wood. So once you start a fire, the wood is essentially going to burn and it wouldn't be able to turn back into wood itself. Cookie dough is another great example. When you're making cookies, you start with cookie dough. Once you bake those cookies, they become a very delicious cookie, but there's no way for us to take that back into cookie dough itself. And one other thing to consider are leaves. If you are under a winter season, it starts to snow, the leaves will start to turn yellow. Once the snow comes off of the leaves, they stay very wilted. They won't stand as green or natural looking as they would if they were under just regular weather. And once the leaves are under very hot circumstances, they tend to dry out. They'll start to turn yellow, then eventually they'll turn brown, depending on the temperature that they're under. One last thing that we'll look at is a worksheet provided by test.com. This worksheet will help you explain what happens when a solid is heated. This is a great exercise for us to be able to look at and see how we can exercise what we learned today.